everyone, and welcome to New Trials, the podcast. I'm Preya.
And I'm Melanie.
The New Trials of Captor Sakura, Syaoran, and Friends is a popular ongoing fanfic by Wishluv, and it's based off of Clam's Captor Sakura. In each episode, we'll do a deep dive of a new chapter. Let's get into it. So, before we start, Melanie, we're getting into the roots of Sakura and Syaoran's ancestors and family history. So my question to you is, do you know about your family history and how far back it goes?
Oh gosh, that is such a good question. I know I've had some family members that has done some genealogies type investigations, but as far as like how far it goes back, I have no idea. All I really know is like a true American. I am made up of many different things. I am mostly Irish and Scottish. And then on my other side, I have Italian and German. But I've always have wanted to do one of those cheek swab genetic things, that actually like lays out for you what you are, because I think that'd be super interesting. How about you?
So I'm first generation Canadian. My parents, grandparents, great grandparents, they're all from Guyana. But the way they got to Guyana in the first place is that in the 1800s, that's when Britain colonized Guyana. And they brought a whole bunch of indentured slaves from India to work in Guyana. And I always thought that I was from then, but my cousin did some digging, and it turns out that was the first wave, and they just didn't like it at all. And a lot of them just went back to India, and it's like, no, it really sucks there. It's like, I just want to go home. So Britain actually made the conditions better. So this was actually post the slavery, and it's like, no, come work, and we're actually going to pay you. We're going to give you land and whatnot. So when things got a bit better and more people like migrated from India to Guyana, that's where my roots come from. So I thought that was really interesting to know, because in history class you just hear, yeah, there's Indians in Guyana because they came from India, but I never knew about the nuance of how there were two waves, and apparently my family is rooted from the second wave.
Oh, that's so cool. And I will admit, I had zero knowledge or zero history of Guyana until like you and I discussed things. And I feel like sometimes I'll still will even ask you some things and you're like, no, that's just not how, I think I asked you like if you speak Hindi and you're like, no, since Guyana is from Britain, we just speak English, or,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I feel like I learn something new every time I talk to you.
Well, it's crazy because even my brother, he made friends with someone from Venezuela. And when the person from Venezuela learned he was from Guyana, he's like, but people don't live in Guyana. It's just wildlands, because that's what they're taught.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. It's like it's as if South America is having a party, and Guyana is just not invited.
Well, you know what? I was just getting ready to say that I'm not even sure I really know where Guyana is. Guyana, sorry.
So basically, it's South America next to Brazil, near Venezuela. It's just the north part of South America, next to French
Oh,
Guiana.
so interesting.
Yeah. No, we're kind of a very low profile country. And it's a weird dichotomy, because even though, like, religiously speaking, it's Hinduism, but at the same time we think of and it's like, so it's like West Indian, but at the same time we consider ourselves like as Caribbean as Trinidad and Tobago and all of the islands. So it's called Indo-Caribbean.
That's so cool. That's so interesting. My only claim to fame is I know one of my very distant ancestors was Edgar Allan Poe.
That's so cool.
He's the only cool one that I know of off the top of my head. But whether or not that is true, that I'm not for sure. But according to my cousin that did the genealogy and whatnot, that's what they said. So
That's fascinating. I love that. Today we'll be discussing the first meeting of rivals or allies. It was posted in the winter or spring of 2000, and the word count is 4,383 words. It takes place in the 8th grade, but this time instead of September, I think it's September/October. So time is starting to move forward in this chapter. Now for the summary. Sakura and Kiro-chan were in the past again, and were startled when Syaoran was with them. Kiro-chan concluded that there was a type of connection that brought them together, even when they were apart. They found themselves in Hong Kong, in the house of the elders of the Li clan, and witnessed a man being given a mission to locate the 5-4 scroll in Chloe Reed's old home and bring it back to China. Sakura, Syaoran, and Kiro-chan were then brought to Ariel's old house, where they saw Nadeshiko sneaking in and then capturing the scroll at the same time as a sapphire-eyed person who was a few years older than she was. They fought over it, but when Nadeshiko revealed that Chloe Reed chose her to retrieve the item, the stranger was startled long enough for her to grab the scroll and run. After hitting a dead end, more fighting led to the scroll ripping. The young man slapped Nadeshiko, which infuriated her. The guardian of the scroll, Moonstone, emerged and granted him his aid. The first thing they learned was that they must work together, and this appalled them both. They each kept one half of the scroll and learned about their quest as they went along. The next day, Syaoran, Sakura, and Kiro-chan discussed their adventures with Tomoyo and determined that the man Nadeshiko bumped into in the flashback before was the same man who she fought with. Syaoran explained the 5-4 scroll by giving a history of the 5 magicians who had mastered in one of the 5 principles of magic. The 5 categories were power of the heavenly bodies, elemental power, sixth sense, contract magic, and power of dark and light.
So first thing I would like to bring up is, and I realize why Wish-chan does it as a writer. I'll just disclaim that right away. But how does Shadow not realize that's his dad?
To be fair, he was young when his dad died, and he probably just doesn't put 2 and 2 together because, like, Sakura, she always grew up with a photo of Nadeshiko on the counter, and she's so used to her mother's presence. And it's like, even Toya confirms that, like, yeah, mother is watching out for us. Whereas Syaoran, like, it's probably not the case. His father died and he became man of the house.
Right, because Syaoran was 3 years old as well, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's fair.
And like Sakura, she found a photo of Nadeshiko and Sonomi before going in the past. So she had a frame of reference.
That's true. That's true. But they're like in the hall of the great elders, and then Shadow's like, "Oh, I heard that speech before," and then it just made me giggle. I was like, "Does he not realize who the previous person that would have been given that speech was?" But again, I realize why Wish-chan did it, and I 100% understand. But it just made me giggle.
I really love how Syaoran gets whisked away with them as well, even though he wasn't like with them at the time. It just gives us more SNS moments.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I like the way that you pronounce Syaoran's dad's name in the audio. Is that like something that Wish-chan gave you a hint about, or were other names?
Yes, it is. And let me find our conversation. So basically, I had reached out to her because I wanted to make sure I pronounced certain names correct within the audiobook, especially characters that she made up herself. So I asked her about Eran, Erika, Ryuren, and Kai. And, I was just like, is it Aaron or Aaron or Urin, Erika, Erica, Ryuren, Kai, K, I just wanted to just get her feelings on it. And then basically she says, I think you're fine with the pronunciations for Aaron and Erika. Their names are supposed to be international, aka fit into any culture. So there's no real proper way to go with it. But I think in Japan, it would be Aaron and Erika. But basically she says it's meant to be international. So I think to call them Aaron and Erica would be fine too. So I think I think that's completely fine. And then she says, so Kai's name, and I think this was the most interesting one to me. So she said, Kai, it's so she said, this one, it's hard one because in Japanese, the way it's romanized, it should be pronounced Kai, but actually it's actually K. But she said, so when his name is Mikai, or, Mikai, it's
Hmm.
supposed to be pronounced Mikai. Isn't
Wow,
that
I
crazy?
called him Mikai like my whole years, decades of being a New Trials fan. I've always called him Mikai.
Same. Like my mind, like the mind blown emoji, that was like my face. But she said that Kaito magician, she said that's correct. And so when Sakura calls him Kai, she's like, that makes sense because it's a short form for Kaito. So she said when it's just Kai, it's Kai. But then if it's ever Mike, then it's Mike. Isn't that crazy?
That is so wild. I would have never guessed that.
And then as far as Ryuren, she said Ryuren is two syllables, like Ryuren. Ryu's kanji for dragon, kind of like in the name Ryusei. It's so funny because I had the same question a long time after I decided on these names. How would they be pronounced in Japanese? In a dub? Why are some names romanized so strangely? Answer is it looks better written. But yeah.
That's very cool. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. And again, I just wanted to make it very clear. Like she was very much like, however you guys pronounce it, I'm so happy with it. She said, this is just how I say things in my head, basically.
Yeah, like I always called Syaoran's dad Ryu Ren because Ryu from Street Fighters.
Oh, yeah. My brain didn't even go there.
Yeah, that's like that's basically why I've been calling him Ryu Ren. And I think even in this podcast, it's like I'm gonna end up calling him Ryu Ren instead of Ryu Ren, which is fine. But
Yeah.
oh, that's really cool. And I'll still say Aaron, I'll still say Erica, but yeah, the Japanese cast will definitely call them the way that you pronounce it in your audiobook for sure.
Yay. But yeah, I thought that was super fun. And it's stuff I've always have just been curious about. And I never had the guts to actually ask her. But since I got her on a messenger, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it.
Well, that's awesome. You're educating us all because we're all reading New Trials in our head. Um, Only a handful of fans have made videos talking about the characters. So this is new territory for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like we said in our very first episode, even though you might pronounce it differently in your head compared to what we do, I'm sure we all do it. We all know what characters we're talking about. So,
So in this chapter, the idea of cat burglar Nadeshiko is just so cute to me.
it's just, I remember first reading this and just being blown away because we all know her as this like very clumsy figure. And so to see her as this graceful cat burglar, I think is just hilarious.
Yeah, and she's using her powers to get through things, and it's like, wow, she could be the mistress of the club. Like she's definitely got the skills.
Remind me, in the original anime, is it ever mentioned that her mom had powers?
Um, in OGCCS, no, but like there could be an argument made that maybe she does have some kind of powers that like bridges the connection with Tuya. Because Toya, he sees spirits, but maybe Nadeshiko has her own kind of power to meet him halfway. I've only
Well,
watched Clear Card once, so I don't remember the details there.
yeah, I don't either. But I was gonna say it makes 100% sense though that she would have the second sight and she would have these powers because, genetically it gets passed down in a way, to her children. So it makes sense, but it's just kind of, I was just thinking, I was like, is that something that was just mentioned in CCS and I just forgot? See, like to me, they both overlap each other so much in my head. It's hard for me to differentiate the two sometimes.
I can tell you for sure that like in CCS, Nadeshiko, she was like pretty much the guardian angel. Like when the illusion was trying to pretend that she was Nadeshiko, the real Nadeshiko actually stepped in and kind of saved Sakura from falling or something like that. So, but other than that, it's never been canonized that she had powers herself. I really like the moment when Sakura decides not to call Nadeshiko mom or her mother. I think it really symbolizes that like this is someone who's her age. This is not the grown woman who has kids of her own, but this is just somebody who's like trying to figure out this mystery. And I like Wish Chan's call on that because it would be so weird if Sakura was going to be continuing and my mom did this and my mom did that and mom is so I like the way that we have Sakura actually correcting herself. It's like, Mom, I mean, it should say Nadeshiko. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like she dissociates in a way, but I think it's a healthy way of disassociating from it too. But also it helps us as a reader to get to know Nadeshiko not as like the mom, but as this, fiery teenager, so it helps us as a reader or listener see her in like a different light, which I think is very interesting.
So, rivals to lovers. Do you like that trope?
Oh my God, yes. It's probably in like my, yeah, it's probably at the very tip top of my list. How about you?
Oh, well, the thing is though, like CCS, like they're one of my OTPs. They went from rivals to lovers. Can't knock them. But like with them, we saw them working together. But this Nadeshiko and Uren meeting, it was aggressive.
Oh my gosh, so aggressive. And, some of it, I will be honest, it almost makes me a little uncomfortable with how aggressive it does get.
It's like he just has no problem with slapping her. And if that was me, I would start crying. But like Nadeshiko, she's like, what do you think I am? Some kind of weak girl who's gonna cry? No. And then doesn't she slap him back?
Yeah, she 100% slaps his butt back, and good for her.
Oh,
And
I
then
thought,
he almost breaks her arm
yeah,
too, which is insane.
that was a very rough start. I think like he's just I think with the because he had to do the chosen one battle, the trials of the chosen one. I think that really hardened him, and I think that made him antisocial, and it probably like allowed him like maybe what happened is that he's just not used to being around people and doesn't know how to be around people, and he's just like the machine kind of mentality of like I have to do whatever I can to get what I want, no matter who's in the way.
Well, and I mean, that's how Syaoran was at first too. As it's pointed out later, he very much tried to force the cards away from Sakura too. And if Toya hadn't stepped in, like, who knows? Like, I agree with Wish Chan though, that I don't think Syaoran would have ever gone to this extent with Sakura. Like, I don't believe that at all. But I mean, who knows? Like the Lee clan puts a lot of pressure on their chosen ones and their kids. So, I mean, I think anyone would buckle under that.
No kidding. Hey, let's talk about Moonstone. So your voice for him is absolutely wonderful. There's just something so like commanding and bossy about it. It doesn't matter he's a little powder puff. He's just gonna tell everybody like what to do.
Well, you know what? I completely forgot he was a guy at first, and I already kind of picked up the voice that I wanted to have for him. So I just started like talking, and then it said something like he said, and I remember I stopped in my audio recording. And I was like, oh no. But then I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, but you know what? I love this voice for him because he looks so cute and cuddly. So he needs a cute and cuddly voice. So then I just rolled with it.
The thing is though, I think like in arc 4, I think he turns into a she. Like when they're talking about Moonstone, I think they're referring to. I think Moonstone starts as a boy, and then and I think what happened was I was rereading New Trials, and I sent a message to Wish-chan. It's like, hey, we haven't seen Moonstone in a while. So she's like, oh yeah, we haven't seen Moonstone in a while. So she inserts him or her or them. And next thing you know, Moonstone is being referred to as a she.
So funny. But you know what? It's kind of like how, Ruby Moon, they make a point of being like, why are you dressed as a woman? Because you're not really a woman. She's like, well, I'm not really any gender. So, fluid identity. I am here for it. But that story is super funny.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Wish-chan once told me that, yeah, Mooney is gender fluid.
We love our non-binary. We are here for it.
Guys and gals and non-binary pals.
I love it. And then my question for you is, so she says that Mooney-chan is based off of the character Mokana for Magic Knight Ray Earth. Did you ever watch that or were into it?
Yeah, big fan actually. I read all 6 volumes. I like the second 3 better than the first 3 because it had like a lot more romance. Well, not a lot. It's mostly fighting, but it had some more romance in it. So it's absolutely fun. It's like 3 girls and they get whisked into this magical kingdom and they have to save it. And I've actually owned the second set, so the second 3 books, but I haven't like cracked those open in a long time. But it's Clamp, and it's very beautiful artwork, very beautiful.
So I will admit, I had no idea what this Mokana thing was, and so I Googled it, and that's how I found out. Like, oh, it's Magic Knight Rayor, and then I had no idea this was also a Clamp. I had no idea. Like I had heard of Magic Knight Rayor because actually my best friend Megan is a huge fan of it. And I don't know why I never got into this one. I guess I just didn't. But anyways, but I had no idea it was a Clamp until I was literally kind of Googling it before we talked today. And I was like, oh, who knew?
Yeah, like CCS is my first love. Then it moves on to Magic Knight Rayearth, and then I would rank Chobits. I enjoyed Chobits. I remember reading Wish, but I can't tell you anything that happened in Wish. I tried reading Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, but that was just a bit I don't know. New Trials is better.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way where I read all the Chobits, I watched the anime. I actually really like that one a lot. Wish I'm like and Tsubasa, my thoughts exactly with you. That's 100% what I thought. I just couldn't dissociate it in my head. Like to me, when I see them as older-ish, I'm like, New Trials.
It's like New Trials is better. I'm just not interested. And even Clear Card, I know the manga is still ongoing, but I only got as far as like watching the anime. And I know I was reading the manga probably until like the maze like section of it, but the anime I watched it because I was living for New Trials. Wish-chan's recaps. Like every episode, she would do such a beautifully detailed recap, and then she would like point out some Easter eggs. It's like, oh yes, they named this teacher, like they named this name, and I actually gave that name to a teacher in chapter 1. Or so Wish-chan came up with her New Trials dash CCS Clear Card trivia, which I loved.
Yeah. I watched the anime for mostly because I also wanted to, read along with Wish-chan, and I liked it okay. Like I already kind of talked about it a little bit that I don't really like Syaoran's personality too much in it. I feel like they kind of vanillified him a little. But yeah, Tsubasa, I don't know. And my same best friend Megan, she's read all of Tsubasa, and like, she tries to explain to me the plot and how just kind of crazy it gets towards the end. And I'm just like, maybe eventually once New Trials is done, maybe I will crack it open. Maybe I'll try to venture. But for right now, my brain is very much full of New Trials and no more information can go in.
Exactly. Like there can only be one.
So one thing that Mooney-chan mentions, which I wanted to run by you, is she she, our non-binary
They.
queen, they they mentioned that Cloud created them on his deathbed. But then we also find out later, and sorry, this is kind of a spoiler, that they are the chained sacred animal. So
Hmm. There's a little artistic tweaking on Wish Chan's part because, like, remember for the longest time, we're like, who's the third voice? And it turned out to be Moonstone all along.
mhm.
But I think because, like I said, for a long time, Moonstone's just gonna dip. It's like you're not gonna hear a peep from them, and I think only when I resurfaced the conversation, like maybe because, like, the third voice, I think that was an arc 3 thing, um,
Mhm.
and then the reveal wasn't until arc 4. So Mooney Chan was definitely in the background, but I don't think Wish Chan knew that they were going to be the patron animal of the Chang family at this point. So I'll let it slide.
Yeah, my only other explanation for it is, in the original CCS, Clow kind of tweaked Kiro and Yue's memories a little bit. That way they wouldn't remember the house and et cetera, et cetera. So I guess another way we could look at it is this might have been his way of tweaking Mooney Chan's memories at this point. So that way she could help Sakura. And then maybe once the Five Force thing gets rolled back, and then once she goes back into possession of Eran and Enrica, then she's like, oh yeah, I remember things or something. I keep forgetting to say they, but
Yeah, well, we'll have fun with Moonstone for a little while. Um, but so this is the introduction, and I think, like, other than Aaron and Erica, I feel that Moonstone was the third. So basically, Aaron and Erica are the first two original characters of Wish Chan, and I think Moonstone is the third.
ah, yes, that is a very good observation.
And in this chapter, the conflict. It must have been so much fun to reenact in on the audiobook. It's like you were, like, pretty much arguing with yourself as them.
I had so much fun with this one, especially all my little sound effects and the ripping paper and stuff. I was having a blast. Luckily, I was able to really give a really good performance this time because most of the time when I record these, my daughter's sleeping in the room next door. But I think for whatever reason, the night when I recorded this, she was staying at my mom's house and my husband was out. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get into it. And not to like toot my own horn or anything, but I was pretty proud of my performance on this one.
It definitely was a whole performance, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Aw, thanks, friend.
Uh, so we have our official introduction to the Great Five, and, like, I can't believe how complex those 5 branches of magic were. And, like, Wuxian just kept getting into it and into it, and it's like, where's all this coming from?
It's insane. And then literally she just continues to build upon it too as we go along. But it makes sense. I'll read her author's note here in a little bit that she basically says, Clow Reed was supposedly was the most powerful magician. And so it would only make sense that he would embody as the most powerful magician all of these things. And so then she had to kind of pick apart certain things about him in order to kind of spread the love, so to say. But yeah, I just think, gosh, her world building, her knowledge is it's amazing.
Do you have anything else to say about the chapter?
I do not.
Okay, so once again, still no Dark Force. We're going to be coasting a few more chapters before we see another one of those. I think right now Wish Chan's, like, main focus is explaining the past. So the fan art that I would like to spotlight is another fan art that I've done a bit recently, 2 years ago. This was for 31 Days of New Trials Challenge 2020. And the prompt was introductions. So I drew a picture of Mooney-chan and I tried to incorporate the description. And it's really cute. And we'll share it with you guys on Facebook and Instagram.
I love it. Well, now that I know what Makana looks like too, you did such a good job. You really did.
I use drawing references. I'm really happy with the way it came out. I guess it's time for the author's notes.
All right. So we got Wish-chan. Confusing, right? Sorry. Here, I'll sum it up. The 5-4 scroll made by Clow Reed had hints to help Nadesco and the mystery boy. If you haven't figured out who he is yet, you'll find out next chapter. To find the Clow. What? Well, this explains why the Clow cards are waiting there in the house to be found by Sakura. If Nadesco finally found the Clow. Okay, next. Somehow, S&S were able to go back to the past and see when Nadesco and the mystery boy first bumped into each other. When Mystery Boy got the summons from the Lee clan elders to go find the Clow, and the actual scene where they bump into each other while they are stealing the 5-4 scroll and get into a fight. Worse, when Xiao-chan tried to steal the Clow cards from poor Sakura. Syaoran, hey! Okay. Now, what's with the 5 powers and magicians? Sorry, confusing, right? That's because I made it all up. Point, there were 5 great magicians in the generation before Clow Reed. Each had a different power of 5 categories. Power of heavenly bodies, elemental power, sixth sense, contract magic, power of dark and light. Yep. Confusing and weird. But makes sense since Clow's son mixes all of these up and he is the most powerful. Oh yeah, and what the beef is Moonstone. Just imagine him as a mixture between Kiro-chan and Mokana from Magic Knight Ray Earth. That is a white Kiro-chan with long rabbit ears that are used as wings. Yep, a weird combo. Note, had this in the next chapter finished for a long time, but it was just too weird. So then she leaves her email.
Yeah, it's like when I look at the 5 different sets, so like Dark and Light, that's Chang's. Sixth Sense, that's the Amamiya. Contract magic, elemental power, and heavenly bodies. Can you maybe the Reed is contract magic?
So I know elemental power is for sure Lee.
Uh-huh.
And then Sixth Sense we know is Amiya.
Mm-hmm.
So then my feeling is, yeah, Reed would be contract magic, and then heavenly bodies would be Mizuki.
Yeah, I think so.
But I know it gets explained further once we finally get to meet the Great 5, but yeah, but I know for sure Elemental and Sixth Sense. But also, once we get to meet Kara in the future, she also has Sixth Sense, right?
Yeah.
Because she does tarot and she can see into the future and all that.
She is a seer, but she's also, yeah. Huh.
And then Sakura does contract magic because she makes contracts with Sakura cards. So I know Wish-chan explains it eventually, but yeah, it is kind of confusing.
Want to say anything else?
Nope, I think I'm good.
You have been listening to New Trials, the podcast, where it must rain for there to be a rainbow.
You've been listening to New Trials, the podcast. Please be sure to also check out the audiobook version of this fan fiction that you can find anywhere that you can find this podcast. Also, please be sure to check out the original fan fiction written by Wish-chan that you can find on fanfiction or on her original website, wishluv.com/newtrials. Also, please be sure to check out our official Facebook page for New Trials fanfiction, that is where we do most of our discussions nowadays. Or if you have a chapter-specific question or just a subject in general you would like Preya and I to discuss, please feel free to give us an email at mtthepod@gmail.com. And be sure to stick around next week where we will be discussing Chapter 7, The Melody of Loneliness.